You look at a lot of the mass participation sports communities that we have out there now, whether it's triathlon, distance running, and I'm even going to throw mixed martial arts and self-defense in there. All of these things have in common is a top-down approach, and the whole movement started with kind of this inspirational sort of, whether it's an iconic figure, whether it's the zest for competition. But the competitive side was really what created the hook for people, and then ultimately the community groundswell built from that.
What's up, golfers everywhere? Hey, quick shout out to all the Speedgolf ambassadors and fans across the world. Keep being the change you want to see in the game and pick up that pace. I'm Scott Dolly, your co-host, along with the always in demand Dude Spellings. This week we're back with top world ranked professional Allan Phillips, and for the next hour we're going speed golfing, ladies and gentlemen. Are you ready? We do it fast, we make it fun, so turn it up and enjoy episode 6 of the Pace of Change Golf Podcast. Hey guys, this episode of the Pace of Change podcast is brought to you by one of our affiliates, Strikingly.com. What is Strikingly.com? Well, it is the website platform that I have used for several years now. I was one of the first adopters of their platform. But what is it? Well, you can build beautiful websites in minutes, no coding knowledge required. Strikingly is absolutely the best website builder for anyone who wants to build gorgeous, mobile-friendly, responsive websites easily. They're quick, simple, and stylish. You can start for free today, and when you figure out you love it as much as I do, you can upgrade. They have simple pricing plans on the cheap. I've used this for at least 7 or 8 different websites that I've built, and I always get incredible feedback. It's not really what I'm doing, it's just how amazing their platform is. It's really simple to use, like I said. You can check it out in the show notes. Head over to our website, paceofchange.com, and click on the affiliate link there. Anytime you do that, you're going to be helping out the Pace of Change podcast as we seek to continue to bring you groundbreaking podcasts about this revolutionary and evolutionary journey the game of golf is on. So thank you for doing that. All right, welcome back to the Pace of Change Golf Podcast. Last week, we spoke with human performance specialist Allan Phillips, a man with sufficient accolades and credentials to warrant our closest attention when it comes to strength and conditioning, peak performance training, and all-around athletic fitness. We broached topics such as modern coaching with technology versus coaching intuition. We talked about athlete readiness as the latest benchmark for optimal performance. We talked about how TPI, Titleist Performance Institute, is training the next generation of junior golfers using the latest child development and motor learning techniques to make learning golf fun, enjoyable, and ultimately a rewarding activity. You see, they're maximizing the quote-unquote windows of opportunity within the human development cycle to create a new generation of superhuman golfers. Definitely worth a listen. We also learned the differences between training age, biological age, and chronological age, how these are rarely aligned, and what can be done to assess and improve our personal fitness condition. Now this week, as promised, we are leaving all pretense behind and getting down to business. It's no secret, speed golf is our common passion, and for the next hour we dive deep into this sleeping giant of a sport, its training applications as it relates to traditional golf, what speed golf needs to reach the masses, the development of a sport-specific set of rules, and the development of a variety of alternative formats within the sport of speed golf itself, such as the Speedgolf 100-yard dash. So look, if you don't know anything about speed golf, this episode is for you. And if you're busy blazing a speed golf trail wherever you are in the world, this episode's for you. All right, let's dive in to episode 6 with top world-ranked professional speed golfer Allan Phillips. You know, the three of us would, I think, unabashedly recommend that anybody should try, any golfer should try speed golf, just for the pure enjoyment of that game and of that format and of that sport itself.
Right.
But where are you in terms of recommending for the traditional golfer who maybe says, well, I'm not going to get into speed golf as its own sport or something that I pursue on its own? Is there value in your traditional game in training by playing speed golf?
I think absolutely. I think, and the funny thing too, I was thinking about this before we came on, is that a lot of traditional golfers, like if you've pretty much everyone has gone out to the course at 7:30 at night in the summer and said, I'm going to get my 9 holes in, or I'm going to get my 18 in. So if you've done that, you've played speed golf.
Yep.
In some
That's a good
shape.
point.
In some shape, yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's if in some shape or form, whether you knew it or not. Maybe you aren't running and sprinting down the fairway. Maybe it's in the cart.
Yeah.
But, or even if it's just, walking fast and say, I'm not going to take practice swings, I'm just going to get up there and whack it and move on. So whether you know it or not, pretty much every golfer has played speed golf at some point, or even played speed golf for one shot where you're playing through a group on a par 3 and say, hey, come on through. And it's like, oh man, I want to hold these guys up and I'm just going to, whack it. So it's, when you frame it in those terms, it's maybe not as foreign to traditional golfers. In terms of its being beneficial to traditional golfers, I think absolutely. Whether it's for me, one of the big things is having to create different shots. I carry a 5 and an 8 iron, for example, as my irons, and so I don't have a 125 or 130 club. So I've gotten more proficient at learning to create shots with with an 8 iron from 125 or 130. And actually when, on a windy day playing regular golf, it's actually kind of a comfort shot to say, what, I don't miss this shot in speed golf. If I come to a hole and I've got 125, I think, man, that's, we're thinking birdie here, just kind of chip that 8 iron up there and, try to knock it close. So, when you go to and it transfers to regular golf, because it's like, okay, if I need that shot, it's like, man, this is my bread and butter from speed golf. So it's a nice shot to have. And just the whole, imaginativeness, being creative and, Seve Ballesteros learned the game with just a 3 iron and created all these shots. And, the member guests, people go out and play with their, play one club, at the end of the day. So the creativity is definitely a big asset to it. And then, the speed, I think a lot of people eventually realize that you don't need to spend as much time. I think just, kind of getting into that flow is really good as well. Sometimes, if you're playing a really tough course in a tournament, your regular golf tournament, you do need to take some time, but you learn to kind of strip back the excess from your routine and your thought process, and speed golf can definitely help you there.
I have a huge advantage running these intro to speed golf sessions down here in Houston, and we did them weekly for like 12 weeks down here.
Uh-huh.
So I got to see a lot of first-time speed golfers, and that is exactly the one thing I noticed and actually highlighted in one of the videos I put together was the average pre-shot routine of all these guys who were coming out for the first time to play speed golf.
Mm-hmm.
Some of them I didn't even have a chance to kind of give them instruction before they went out. And I've looked at in creating these videos, I've calculated the average pre-shot routine, and it's 7 seconds.
For speed golfers?
For first-time speed golfers. They put the ball down in the ground on the tee, they step up to the ball in the fairway, and once they have the club in their hand, it's a 7-second routine.
You ought to go sit down at Memorial and just watch people on the first tee and just randomly time people what they do in normal golf, just to have a comparison.
Well, we know that I think the rules state you have 45 seconds when it's your turn. Isn't that right?
I don't know.
I think it's 40.
Surely Kevin Na has violated that.
So, I mean, all the guys on tour are violating that. But even if it's 40 seconds, talk about picking up the pace in the regular game. And the people, these first-time speed golfers that are going out, are shooting the best rounds of their life. Mm-hmm. The last week, there was a gentleman that came out who's a 20 handicap, and he shot 5 over for 9 holes. He shot 41 for 9 holes. He said it was his best 9 holes ever. And he did it in 30 minutes and 30 seconds.
An incomplete set too, right?
What's that?
An incomplete set too, right?
Yeah.
Of irons. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Incomplete set he was carrying. He actually chipped in twice for birdie in a row.
Holy smokes.
And it was bombing it right down the middle of the fairway, was having so much fun. And that's an experience we've all had, not only as first-time speed golfers, but as professional speed golfers and elite amateur speed golfers. We've all had that. We've seen first-time speed golfers and new speed golfers have that experience. So, Alan, my question to you is, why hasn't speed golf reached the masses faster than it has? I mean, why is it still a relatively unknown format and a relatively unknown sport?
I think the big thing is access, number one. I think you kind of got into this with the previous podcast talking about foot golf. Golf courses tend to be very closed and closed-minded in many cases. And a lot of the population that you're after with essentially typically the recreational players, they play golf because they don't have to run in golf. Otherwise, if they want to run, they'd be playing basketball or soccer or something else like that. So I think that's one thing. I think the other thing is that golf is really hard. There's this definitely, I think there's an intimidation factor. It's like, well, gosh, I go out and I already shoot 95 with a full set and taking my time with stuff. And man, I'm going to shoot a million if you take half my clubs away and I have to, take my oxygen away. And so I think there's that too. And I think another thing is that there maybe isn't a lot of overlap in terms of, runners who golf and golfers who run. I mean, there's probably more than we think. I mean, I think we're all looking for that, that groundswell of people who do both. But I think overall it's still a relatively small population of people who can do both. So I think that's another obstacle.
I actually I found what those numbers are. I actually called the USA Sports Marketing Survey company to try and ask that specific question. There's actually more people that run and play golf than you would imagine.
Huh.
Of the 51 odd million runners out there, I believe 18% of them also play golf.
Mm-hmm.
And then if you survey the golfers, which there's roughly 24 or 25 million,
mm-hmm.
about 26% of those say they also run.
Mm-hmm.
So we are talking about anywhere between 7 and 12 million people that have experience with both of those.
Yeah, I think one of the, like we talked about earlier, one of the big unknowns there is what they're calling, quote, golfers, right, is someone who golfed that year one time. What they called avid golfers, what if you play 8 times in the year?
More than 8 times. More
than 8 times. So, I mean, you think about, that's not avid to me. I mean, I play every weekend. So, yeah, if you're saying anyone who's played golf this year and also ran a 5K this year, sure, that number could be 7 million.
Yeah.
But the point is, if you did both, you could do them both at the same time.
Yeah, and it's, we've just enumerated all of the, fantastic benefits of it and given examples, very specific examples of where people who had that concern, man, I'm going to shoot 100 if you take half my clubs away and make me run or jog. having an experience that's exactly the opposite. They play better, they have more fun, they enjoy themselves more. So, where is speed golf going wrong in terms of not being able to get that message out? Do you think some sort of athletic scientific survey that was able to give very specific data results and facts about how playing speed golf actually does increase your peak performance and enjoyment of the game? Do you think a study like that coming out would help make a difference?
I don't know that appealing to people's rationalness and logic is necessarily
the way to go.
No,
right.
I totally agree. I think it's all about marketing.
Yeah, I was thinking about this before, and I think you look at a lot of the mass kind of mass participation sports communities that we have out there now, whether it's triathlon, distance running, and I'm even going to throw mixed martial arts and self-defense in there.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to tell you why, because I think all of these things have in common is a top-down approach. By that I mean there was something on TV or some kind of story that captivated people to get them started and have this fascination of, wow, this is something I really like to do. So even though there are millions of people who enter a triathlon having no idea who won the Hawaii Ironman last year or the year before, this year, ever, I know nothing about the history of triathlon. They do it just for the triathlon lifestyle. And even though there's plenty of people who run marathons without knowing who won last year's Boston Marathon or even caring who won last year's Boston Marathon, all of that, those events are in existence because back in the day there was Frank Shorter inspiring people to get out and run. And the whole movement started with kind of this inspirational sort of, whether it's an iconic figure, whether it's the zest for competition, but the competitive side was really what created the hook for people, and then ultimately the community groundswell built from that. I'm throwing MMA in there too because you look at some of the superstars out there, whether it's Ronda Rousey now, and years ago it was Chuck Liddell, George St. Pierre. People, they're like, wow, these people are pretty cool. I want to do what they do. But now there are people in gyms, mixed martial arts gyms, BJJ gyms, even regular just, hey, I want to protect myself on the street classes who were inspired to sign up for those classes with no intent of ever entering a sanctioned competitive bout. But the captivation that pulled them in was seeing these compelling sporting events, compelling figures on TV. Ultimately, that created some kind of groundswell at the grassroots level for more widespread participation. So where I think this ties into speed golf, I think a lot of it is, I think we absolutely need television or some type of online streaming. Now, are we going to have 2012 or 2013 Masters pre-coverage again? I don't know. And honestly, I don't know that we even need that necessarily, because you look at, with all the power of online streaming, whether it's something as simple as Periscope, whether it's sending droids up in the air like we were talking about on Facebook earlier today, but you look around and it's like, gosh, you can get live online stream feeds of preseason junior varsity field hockey in southeastern Louisiana on YouTube or wherever, so why can't we get a speed golf tour event? At least someone set up an iPhone, set up their phone and Periscope the thing. And you look at, there's all sorts of videos of disc golf on YouTube with, like 50 million views.
Yeah, Spin TV is a fantastic, I think, business model for a sport like speed golf. They've done a really great job, and for everyone out there, you should go to YouTube and look up Spin TV and just see the professional production they put on for disc golf events, where they're really only showing the final group. They're only showing the final 4 players of an event, but it's captivating. It's exciting, and they've got 2 cameras. Mm-hmm. But they just do a really, really great job, and something like that is what speed golf needs. I totally agree with you. It's just content creation.
I think that Speedgolf has inherently built-in feature that would appeal to audiences way outside speed golf. So if you look at downhill skiing, right? Millions of people watch downhill skiing. If you're in a sports bar and it's on, right? Everybody's watching it. A, they want to see the wipeouts, but B, they put that little clock in the corner.
Absolutely.
And it shows how far ahead or behind they are of the leader. And it's just human nature. You can't not watch
when a clock is ticking.
When he's 0.12 seconds ahead of the leader, you're gonna finish watching to see how he ends up.
Such a great point.
Yeah.
Speed golf has that, right? You could film it like that.
Yeah, and it's like Tour de France is another example. Especially in the time trials. And they do in the marathons too. And it's a great point that you bring up because it's so simple. And it's the difference between, like, if you were to turn on a marathon and just show some Kenyan guy running out front, then it's like, oh wow, that's he has a beautiful stride, whatever, and it's okay, that's nice. But you put a little clock in the corner, and you say he's 15 seconds up on the guy in second place, and all of a sudden it becomes something compelling. I mean,
or
even
15 seconds off the world record.
Right, exactly, and it's like, I mean, even I get bored watching, running events or triathlons if they don't have any sort of data saying how far, what the deficit is or whatever. But you put that clock there, and then it becomes there's this inherent conflict, there's tension, there's all these things that the viewer wants to see.
Man, just close your eyes and imagine golf with a clock on it. How much more exciting would that be? I mean, people say watching golf is so boring they take naps to it,
A shot clock for PGA Tour.
Yeah.
Right.
No, I mean, honestly,
he's only got 4 seconds left on the shot clock.
That's one of the reasons why I started doing this Speedgolf 100-yard dash is because I felt like if I could get other people starting to video that and film themselves doing that, there's a short enough time, and I mean, there's not going to be that much difference between how long it takes somebody to run 100 yards and put the ball in the hole,
right?
As opposed to an 18-hole round where somebody could do it in 40 minutes and someone could do it in 60 minutes. With 100 yards, it's going to be 23 seconds or 25 seconds. So it does kind of, getting those together and splicing them together and having that clock there, can really create excitement and anticipation. That's one of the reasons I did that. But I think speed golf as a sport can also expand kind of its relevancy by going beyond just an 18-hole competition and beginning to shorten that up. And just like a track and field meet, offering different distances that you can play speed golf at, I think could really help as well. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think absolutely it can make it more exciting. We saw that at the at the old Virginia event that we used to have, that little par 3 exhibition, and Rob Hogan breaking 10 minutes or whatever he did out there. Yeah, it was a 9-hole par 3 course, manicured like Augusta, but yeah, I think Rob broke 10 minutes out there, and but yeah, any kind of different format could be a lot of fun, and track and field's is a great example.
Yeah, and I have to say, just from doing the few speed golf events I've done in Austin, especially turkey trot golf, offering a 9-hole option seems less intimidating, easier for people to run. It's only 2 or 3 miles as opposed to 4 to 6 miles. And I totally, we ought to be doing 3-hole events, 1-hole events, and 100-yard events.
Yeah, I think so as well. But Alan, I also agree with you. I think Ironman took off with that iconic picture of, I think it was a lady that was on all fours, kind of crossing the finish line,
right?
And that kind of sparked that, and the CrossFit Games. How many 20, 50,000 people try to go to the CrossFit Games, and they have no intention of ever making it.
Right.
But they want to be a part of that community. And speed golf has that community, albeit it's a small connected community right now, but I mean, it definitely has that vibe and that feeling for those of us who participated in the World Championship or got to go to Virginia. Every time we all get together in an event, at an event, there's definitely that feeling there of community and togetherness, and we're doing something different and unique. And
Speedgolf events to me the community feels a lot like ultra events, right? I mean,
Yeah.
It's a very tight, small community. Most everyone knows each other. Somebody like me who's neither good at golf nor ultra marathons can rub shoulders with elites in both sports. Yeah, I agree. I mean, one thing we definitely have is a tight-knit community.
And I think, and hopefully this isn't, self-serving, for Scott or myself, since, we're both, highly ranked professionals. But I think, there can be marketing at the top of the sport and marketing the personalities, Rob, marketing, Rob Hogan. I mean, how, you guys so marketable, with how unique he is, and Eric Crum with his backstory, and
Yep.
Nick Willis, obviously, and that's one thing that all these other sports have. Even CrossFit Games, whether it's CrossFit Games, MMA, triathlon, not as much distance running these days because it's more foreigners, but in foreign countries, the leading runners are very big personalities and have this crossover effect outside the sport, the sport itself. And you look at other things we haven't talked about, like, one example I thought was competitive eating. Everyone knows, they have no intention of ever entering a competitive eating competition. But people know Kobayashi,
Absolutely.
They know Joey Chestnut, they know Sonia the Black Widow, because these people have been marketed for their uniqueness, and they are compelling figures, even if you know nothing about the technique of competitive eating or the science of it, or have no desire to have anything to do with it other than watch 30 seconds of highlights on SportsCenter on July 4th. So I think there's definitely room for improvement in that area to market, the personalities at the forefront at the elite level.
That's a great point. Speaking of Rob Hogan, who is the current world champion, two-time world champion, by far and away the number one speed golfer in the world, he's got 99 on his golf bag, and
Mm-hmm.
I think all three of us can rightly assume what that means, which is that although the current world record right now is 108 and 50 some odd seconds, his goal is to break 100 as a speed golf score. So for those who don't know, speed golf is simply the addition of your golf score plus the amount of time that it takes to play your round of golf. So in order to shoot 99, it would be something like 65 in 34 minutes. How attainable is that, Alan?
I mean, it's doable. I mean, you look at the courses, the speed golf course, the course, nearest courses are, say, 5,800 yards long, 6,000, 62. If you were to just look at the scorecard as an elite player, it's a scratch player or professional like Rob is, if you were to look at the scorecard and say, yeah, there's 5 birdies on this course for sure to shoot 65.
Scott had 6 and an eagle at the Glen Club, so
absolutely, yeah.
That was one of the most disappointing things about shooting even par was that I was 3 under with 2 to play, and I felt like to be able to shoot 69 in 47 or 48 minutes would have been hard to ignore, because it essentially is shooting the same thing that the PGA Tour players are shooting. And I think that could have made some news, regardless of who it was that did it. I felt like that could have helped elevate the sport. And I think shooting even par it was fantastic. It was fun to do that. But I think once we start shooting in the 60s, it's going to be hard to not cover that and to ignore that anymore. To go out and be shooting the same thing that the guys who are the best players in the world taking 5 hours to do it, we're doing it in literally an order of magnitude less.
But back to 99. So,
yeah.
I mean, I think in terms of the golf, we all agree, a round with 5 or 6 birdies is out there.
It's possible, yes. Totally possible.
How fast can the fitness get? I mean, to me, when Rob Hogan finishes, and you, Scott, when you finish, I mean, man, you guys look like you're spent. Like you're not, you couldn't have run that much faster last year.
No, and Alan, my question is, or my point is, I ran in 48 minutes this year in the second round of the World Championships. Rob ran in 40 minutes, and I looked at I was wearing a watch. I was wearing a GPS watch, and I had my pace and everything. I mean, in between shots for pretty much the entire round, I was running between a 4.5 and a 5.5 minute per mile pace. I mean, you can't physically run that much faster than that. Mm-hmm. Rob, I know he's faster than me because he runs a 15 or 16 minute 5K, and I run a 18.5 or 19 minute 5K. So I know that he's faster than me, but there's just a limit to how much faster you can get. And so, how much faster can Rob get, to Dude's point, and how much faster can a human being get while playing speed golf?
And how much of it is fitness, and how much of it's going to be innovations like figuring out how to speed up the transition, how to carry clubs in a more ergonomic, efficient way, etc.
So I think fitness-wise, I think the fact that Nick Willis doesn't post the fastest time in speed golf events, it shows there's the fastest speed golf round. There's definitely room for people to go faster, but I think what it does mean is that a lot of it just comes down to playing cleaner golf. It's hard to say without having shot link data for all of us in speed golf. So we really don't know exactly.
Here's a clue, right? 2 years ago in Turkey Trot Golf, Scott and I ran together, and his GPS said, what was it, 2.3 miles or something like that? Mm-hmm. And we had a 36 handicap woman also play behind us, and her GPS watch said like 3.4 miles. Mm-hmm. So that demonstrates what you're saying exactly.
Right. And I think playing cleaner golf is one way it's going to make it faster. I think that's part of how I ran faster than Rob at Portland. I had a chip in and hit the flagstick on one hole. So that's
how much of it is picking lines for your shots that reduce running time instead of picking shots that maybe give you the best angle to the green or widest part of the fairway or whatnot.
I think that's a tough question to answer because I think it's such a fluid situation. Ultimately you don't want to overthink yourself into saying, okay, I'm going to take the best speed golf line and then make a bogey on the hole, because then you've given away all your saved time and more. So I think it's something it's tough to say, and I think we're all still learning how it fits together. But I do think that if you're shooting under par, just going out and shooting under par is going to solve a lot of things. And plus the fact that when you're playing that good golf, a lot of things just take care of themselves in terms of deciding what the best line is. There's never going to be a problem with striping it down the middle, 270, 280. I think another thing that could come into play, just going back to what we were talking about with data, is understanding how to invest your time on the course. One example that I like to use for my own game is with the putting. There we know from the data on putting that you better make your putts inside 5 or 6 feet. You better not 3-putt from outside 20 or 30 feet, but between, say, 8 feet, 10 feet, and 20 feet, you're probably not going to make that putt. PGA Tour players hardly ever make that putt. So when you're putting from, say, 14, 15 feet, it makes zero sense to spend any appreciable amount of time on that putt because you're probably not going to make it. And if you do, it's purely luck. So I think that's one area where we can improve in terms of allocating your time and knowing where we can speed up, where you might need to slow down, because maybe some of those, we are so focused on speed so much, and maybe there is a benefit to, on the 30-foot putts and the 40-foot putts, to taking maybe just a little bit of extra time, because number one, you won't 3-putt, and number two, you might actually get it back in leaving your your approach putt closer to the hole, so you don't even have to line up your next putt.
Yeah.
Just trying to get our hands around some of the other data too, like on, we know that driving accuracy in terms of golf score isn't as important as we thought it was. That's the whole bomb and gouge theory of the modern game now. Obviously, you don't want to hit yourself, under lips of bunkers or behind trees or lost balls or anything. But, their scores are generally better if you try to get the ball as far up as you can close to the green. And even if it's in the rough, just wedge it up there, because it's better to hit a wedge from the rough than, say, an 8-iron from the middle of the fairway 30 yards back. So trying to reconcile that type of information too, because, if you hit in the rough, that's taking some extra time running off center and the shortest distance.
Well, and at a course like the Glen Club, which you were there,
right?
If you hit it in the rough in the Glen Club, you're probably at a minimum taking an extra 5 seconds to locate your ball.
Right.
Maximum 20 seconds. Would you agree, Scott?
Maximum, I lost the ball.
Okay, so that was on the first day, right?
That was on day one, yeah.
Yeah. So here's a question that you might have some information about, Alan. So I play golf with a couple of guys that are buddies with Lance Armstrong. Mm-hmm. I never played with Lance, but played with these guys. One of them was a fellow cyclist competitor. And he told me that Lance told him that the fittest person in the history of the world was Evander Holyfield. And that Evander Holyfield, during a boxing match, would get his maximum heart rate up to 220. And by the time that the end of the break between rounds happened, his heart rate would get back down to 60. Mm-hmm. How could that help a speed golfer? Learning how to do that.
Is that possible? You have to answer that first.
True. Yeah.
Evander Holyfield is a legendary athlete and one of those once in a generation type of individuals. So an amazing icon in his sport. So I wouldn't doubt it. It sounds very plausible for it to be Evander Holyfield. In terms of golf, is it trainable for the average golfer?
Well, maybe not those numbers, but a variation of those numbers.
And I think the variation of those numbers, absolutely. And some of that comes down to strategy in terms of maybe, do you hold back just that little bit? Because, when you're running right around your at or above or just below your lactate threshold, it's a very small difference in pace can make a huge difference in feel and perception. So a lot of it just comes down to finding that sweet spot, and that might come down to where some of the data helps, tracking out in the course and physiological
during training.
Right, absolutely. And then,
sorry for interrupting. Yeah. Do you know anything about how biathletes train? Seems like, that's something that they're doing specifically is, they're out there running these 10K, 20K, 50K races in cross-country skis, getting their heart rate right at that lactate threshold that you're talking about, and then stopping and doing this precision event shooting. I don't know anything about that sport, but the only thing I do know when I watch the Olympics is that the commentators all say, oh, he's going to have to get his heart rate down to hit this target.
Yeah, I don't know much about biathlon itself, but I do know in cycling and in distance running, specifically cross country. You look at like the World Cross Country Championships, for example, in a race where there is a lot of surging involved. In cycling, there's obviously a lot of surging involved. Different pace changes. So even though they aren't stopping and shooting a weapon or hitting a golf shot, within those situations, they're training very similar training for very similar mechanisms. That is the ability to have a spike in output and then try to settle back into something. For them, in the middle of a race, it's going to still be a pretty high level of output. In biathlon or speed golf, it's going to be as relaxed as possible, but essentially training for these kind of yo-yos in output. So I think in a general sense, it's going to involve going from kind of general training to specific. First of all, you're going to need a base of just aerobic training to be able to, sustain that type of high level output. Then as you get closer to an event, then it will focus more on these specific pace changes and specific output changes. Now in a sport like biathlon, that might the specific training might incorporate, or it might be a bigger part of the entire training output or entire training plan than in a sport like running, for example, where it's that type of pace change is just a smaller part of the sport. But I think ultimately it's going to involve a wide range of types of training.
So, question for you, Alan.
Sure.
Which professional golfer do you think would be most likely to try speed golf, and which professional golfer would you like to see give speed golf a try?
Most likely to try, I think a guy like Will McKenzie, someone that comes to mind. He's a extreme sport, mountain climbing, into some water sports. I don't know him personally or anything, but just seems like the type of guy who would be up for that type of thing. I think a couple of years ago we had, JJ Colleen was signed up for Speed Golf Worlds. I don't know if he has his big tour card now. I think he's on the web.com now. But he seemed he was into it. I think I was on Strava or Twitter. He was posting, some good 10, 12, 13 mile runs out there. I know his playing days, his big tour playing days are done, but I think Jesper Parnevik used to be very proud of the fact that he could run under 40 minute 10K.
Oh, I didn't know that. Wow, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Who would you want to see?
Who I want to see? I guess if Tiger's kind of wounded, it wouldn't really be fair.
I don't think he's going to be running.
Yeah.
Too much longer.
I'd like to see. I think Camilo falls into both of the categories. Someone who's likely to try it, and someone who I'd like to see try it because he's an avid cyclist. And so he's obviously got that, aerobic endurance base that not a lot of PGA Tour guys have. Seems like the type of guy who, thinks outside the box in that regard and is into these endurance sports.
On that note, similar guy, totally off the charts. You guys are not even going to see this coming. Gary Player.
That's a good one.
Dude, he would love to play it right now.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
he's like 79 years old, and I bet he could still beat a lot of people.
Yeah, that's a great point. I was thinking too. When we were talking about the 100-yard speed golf thing. I was like, gosh, if I wanted to break the Scott's record, one of the things I would do is kind of the Gary Player walkthrough, follow through. I kind of go right into the sprint.
Yeah, 23 seconds is. I think I can probably do it, excluding holing it out. Which I think if we do this long enough, or it becomes something that's more popular, it becomes kind of a format. I think even if you do hole it out, you should have to run and touch the flag stick or something. But for me, I think 23 seconds. If I get to 22 seconds, I think that's about my limit. But
let me ask you about the rules here.
Sure.
Can I leave my putter on the green, walk back 100 yards, hit my wedge shot, drop my wedge, run to the green, and pick up my putter?
I think I think the putter should be with you when you hit the ball.
Yeah, it should be.
But I think that you could lean it against something where you hit it and just grab it and go. I would think rules wise, you don't have to lay it on the ground and bend over and pick it up.
And I didn't see how what you did with your wedge. Did you?
I run with it. I run with it up to the green.
But you could leave it at the shot.
Yeah, conceivably, I think that'd be fine. You hit the shot, drop it like, I guess in baseball, you hit it, you drop the bat, you run. Yeah. But yeah, I think what we're going for is speed here. So if that makes you faster, then I would be all for hit the shot, drop the club, grab the putter, all kind of in the same motion, and then you're running up there.
So Scott and I, you may have seen my posts on Facebook, but Scott and I have been talking about because right now the rules of speed golf are essentially, if you go to the World Championships of Speed Golf, the rules are, well, we're the USGA rules. Oh, and you can putt with the flag stick in, and if you lose a ball, you drop it on the line of flight. And other than that, it's USGA rules. After our interview with Roberto with the Balestrini with the foot golf, they developed their own rules, and Scott and I were very impressed, and we came away from that discussion thinking that if speed golf had its own specific set of rules for speed golf, separate and apart from the USGA, that might be a benchmark to help legitimize the sport, attract new people, and really sort of break away from being this stepchild type sport and come into our own. What do you think about that?
I think that's a step along the way. I mean, I don't know that the impediment to people getting out to the course is the lack of a rule book. I think in terms of growing the sport, in terms of, if we're putting on a world championship and marketing as a legitimate sport, then yeah, I think that absolutely a unique set of rules is something.
Let me go a step further. I
Sure.
think that the speed golf rules could actually be an attraction because the rules of golf are so complex, overbearing, difficult to understand,
lengthy,
numerous,
onerous,
harmful to the game in some respects, with some details,
outdated,
and if you could come away with some speed golf rules that were super clean, super easy to understand. And one of the things that foot golf did that I thought was really, their rules, right, is a rule book. It's, I don't know how thick it is, but it was many, many pages.
Mm-hmm.
But if you just wanted to pick up foot golf, they had abbreviated rules that was like a 2-pager illustrated.
Front and back, yeah.
Front and back. Mm-hmm. It was, here's the basics that you need to know to go out on your first time. Have fun. And I think if speed golf went that route, regular golf might even want to borrow it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think you could actually have the rules actually be something that would attract people rather than sort of this esoteric rules. Who cares about rules type thing?
Mm-hmm.
If you came up with something innovative, it would attract people, I think.
Yeah, I think absolutely it could. I think in terms of, I guess I'm not seeing the rules of golf as an impediment toward a lot of mass participation, because a lot of people who play regular golf don't follow the rules of golf anyway. I think a lot of things.
That's true.
So I think a lot of things we talked. I think a lot of the impediments are more just sort of the social and the cultural. Golf being a very closed society to outsiders, and you have to, the dress code and etiquette. I think that kind of stuff is more the impediment than than having a working knowledge of the rule book.
The head of the RNA a few weeks ago, they ran an article on some of the things that he had talked about at the recent gathering they had at St. Andrews about the pace of play survey they did, the global survey they did, and the results. And one of the interesting things that he threw out there that they commented on was, hey, I don't know, maybe golf needs to develop a pace handicap. What are your thoughts on that? And my second question is, what is the upper limit of what you would define as speed golf?
In terms of pace handicap, yeah, I think we have that already to an extent, and somewhat successfully, almost too successful, some people would say, in the American Junior Golf Association, where they are very strict with their pacing now, and they have time pars for holes, and they are not afraid to dispense with penalties, unlike the PGA Tour, where penalties come along once every 20 years, and the only time it does happen is when they pick on their 14-year-old kids at the Masters. But yeah, I think time pars could work, and I mean, they probably already do exist to an extent. They just aren't enforced. I think that's someone needs to have the stones to say, you know what, you're out of time par, so here's the penalty.
That to me, that's the entire key to the whole thing is you got to have the stones to confront people and tell them, hey,
right.
Look, you are slow.
Right. But in fairness to I mean, obviously there are some fairly blatant situations where it's an official probably should step in, but there are other times it's as we know it's a very fluid situation. Are you going to penalize an entire group because someone was entirely within their right to spend their 5 minutes looking for a lost ball in competition, and then having to go back to the tee, and then sorting through that type of stuff can get messy. And then all the tricks that the tour players have to sort of legally manipulate the clock. We talked about the 45 seconds, but guys will kind of lag behind their caddy, for example, and start thinking about the shot away from the ball.
And maybe ask their caddy a question. Now all of a sudden, you're not in your pre-shot routine. You're talking to your caddy.
Well,
Right.
Some people are calling that cheating.
I would.
Yeah, is it cheating? I think sometimes it is cheating.
Yeah, it's a gray area. It's like I mean, there are examples from all sports. It's if you do a hand check in basketball and the ref doesn't see it, is it cheating, or is it taking advantage of all that you have available? I mean, it's a tough call, and there are a lot of those tough calls out on the golf course. But I think as I said, and as Dude said, it comes back to someone having the stones to stand up and enforce the rules that are already in place in those blatant situations. Because despite all the many gray areas that exist, there are definitely blatant situations that exist at all levels of golf.
I think calling penalties is what could be considered as negative reinforcement as opposed to positive reinforcement. And while I think it's important that we need to have the right people out there, calling penalties when it's called for, I still think there's a 180-degree difference between that negative reinforcement and somehow getting the concept across that the pace at which golf is played at the highest level and even down to the amateur level right now is not the optimal pace to play golf at. The optimal pace if you want to have peak performance, the pace at which golf is played at right now is not the optimal pace. The optimal pace is actually faster. Now, how much faster is it? That's what we need to discover, and that's what each player needs to discover. But I think that kind of positive reinforcement of saying, look, if you play faster, when you play faster, the odds of you playing better are greater than the odds of you playing worse.
Yeah, and I think it's a great point in this to sort of clean up what we were talking about before, the penalties. I mean, that's mostly we're talking about for the PGA Tour.
Yeah.
For example, not for the average guy and having
Saturday morning round. Yeah.
Yeah, and then having the marshal come out and assess penalties in the skins game. But yeah, I mean, that's a great point about making it positive. And even the PGA Tour guys, they can they've shown examples where they can play fast. Guy goes off as as a single in the first group out on Sunday because they had 71 guys instead of 72 make the cut, and but they usually zip it around, and they don't always score great because they're in last place, and a lot of times don't really care, just want to get the round in and move on. But another example of guys playing well and playing fast is you look at you get to the 18th hole and they've blown you're on the 17th hole and they're threatening to blow the horn for darkness.
Oh yeah.
Or for lightning, and all of a sudden these
Ian Poulter takes off.
Right, Ian Poulter takes off. No one wants to show up at 7 a.m. to hit a 5-foot putt as their only shot and then go back to bed and come out for 3:00 p.m. tee time. So they're going to find a way to get in the house, before darkness, so they don't have to come out for that 7:00 tee time, or not even tee time, to hit 1 or 2 shots on 18 and then come back later in the day. So it can be done at the highest levels of golf.
I had to look it up while you were talking. Jeff Overton finished Whistling Straits, of all places.
Wow.
In 2:09.
Doesn't that mean he would have run into the people? Oh, no, because it was on a weekend.
He was the first group off.
It was on a weekend then. It wouldn't have been on a Thursday or Friday, obviously, yeah.
Yeah.
And he did shoot 79. So he obviously, like Alan said, he didn't really care that much.
There are guys that play in the final, they're single and they shoot in the 60s, they play in 3 hours or whatever.
The round I'm thinking of happened, I believe it was the year before last. I forget who it was, but they shot like some crazy good score, like 64 in like 2.5 hours.
Well, Alan, man, it's been great getting back together with you and getting on this podcast. Are there any final thoughts you want to leave with the listeners?
It was an honor to be on the show, and it was a great discussion. Gosh, these 2 hours went by really, really fast. I appreciate all the work you're doing to promote speed golf and alternative forms of play, and most importantly, it's great to just get on here and chat some golf, and would love to be back again sometime and talk about some new developments in the world of speed golf. Hopefully have some tournaments coming up next year, and looking forward to a great 2016.
And where can people find you online or social media? How can people follow you if they're interested?
Sure. So my business website is Pike Athletics, so www.pikeathletics.com. You can look me up on Facebook if you want, Allan, Allan Phillips. Also Instagram at I think it's ALPHILL4305 is my Instagram handle. So.
All right. So will you commit to going out and filming yourself do the Speed Golf 100-yard dash?
I will do that. Does it have to be a par 3?
It does not have to be par 3. It just has to be. You can go out to 100 yards, and if I do it on a par 4 and the pin's back, then I'll move up 5 yards from the 100-yard marker or whatever.
Do you use the laser to make sure it's 100?
No, I'm not there yet. I mean, like I said, I pace it. Yeah, if the pin's up 5 yards, then I'll go to 100.
Oh, you just go to the 100-yard marker and adjust for the pin.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
All right, Alan. Great having you on, man. We'll talk soon again. And until next time, guys, pick up the pace.
Pick up the pace.
Sounds great. Appreciate it.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
All right, episode 6 in the books. Did you enjoy that foray into the world of speed golf? One thing's for sure. It's a sport with tons of potential, especially in light of the slow play dilemma golf's been struggling with for quite a while now. What are your thoughts? We love to hear from our listeners. Why don't you add to the discussion by joining the Speed Golf discussion group on Facebook? You can support our efforts by following us on Facebook /Pace of Change and Twitter @PaceOfChangePod. Visit our website, paceofchange.com, and sign up for our newsletter to stay up to speed on the latest POC podcast news, announcements, and updates. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel, and if you're listening on iTunes, you can really help us by subscribing and leaving a review. Just know every action that you take above makes a bigger difference than you can imagine, so thank you for taking the time to do that. How else can we serve you, the listener? What other topics would you like to hear about? Who in the world of golf would you like us to interview? Leave your comments on social media, and know we value your feedback. All right, until next time, pick up the pace, and we'll see you next week.